Good evening and welcome to Garfield Heights City School District Special Board Meeting Work Session. Tonight is Monday, September 9th, 2024. I call the meeting to order. Could I get roll call, please?
Ms. Cox, Mrs. Daniels,
Here.
Ms. Thomas, Ms. Morrison,
Here.
Ms. King.
Here. And please let the record reflect that Ms. Cox and Ms. Thomas have excused absences. Could I get a motion to adopt this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Morrison and second by Ms. Daniels. Can I get roll call, please?
Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes. Moving on to presentations, I'd like to turn the floor over to Dr. Reynolds to talk with us about the beginning of the academic year.
Thank you, Madam President. We began this year on a great note, on a high note, with our convocation. Our focus this year is to dare greatly, which will allow us to promote the effort of having high expectations for ourselves and also for our students. And teachers were welcomed back with clap-in cheerleaders, band, community members, and also a national speaker who came in. It was a great time and a great way to begin the school year, talking about what we should be expecting of our kids and how we can make sure that we are daring greatly. Also, we had some really good news about the Boys and Girls Club. We talked a little earlier about them having some challenges, financial challenges, but they were able to work out something with Dr. Dupree in order to still make sure that they were serving our children at Elmwood. So they will be working with us, and we're very thankful for that opportunity to continue to work. Also, our teaching and learning department come out of the gate strongly with a solid scope and sequence. They're ensuring that our instructional practices are at the forefront with our goals, which is our goals for the year, led by Ms. Gina Bazier and teaching and learning supervisors. Ames Webb will begin at William Foster for the rest of this week. Also, this is a diagnostic, a reading diagnostic that will allow us to know exactly where our kids are and whether they are growing or not. And that works the same way with CRS. That's going to begin tomorrow in our secondary schools. We're doing a lot of things at the beginning of the year to really kind of know where our students are, and so we can establish the baseline, and then we can grow with our students. The Bulldog Recovery Program is also beginning tomorrow. Elementary coaches are already doing their fidelity walks with some of our programs, with Hegarty and also with foundations. Dr. Brock and Mr. Woolley have written a STEM grant. So just so you all know, what we're trying to do is to make sure we're taking advantage of every opportunity to fund some of our programs or just to find funding for the school district. So we will be applying for every grant that we can get our hands on. This is a great opportunity for us to really push some of our efforts and even some of the efforts of our teachers who have some passion programs or passion projects that they'd like to work on this year. So we are looking at grants to help us with those things. Principals are already conducting their walkthroughs. As I said, instructional practices are our focus for the year. So principals are already in the buildings, in classrooms, giving feedback to teachers, and also using our walkthrough forms that we have. It allows us to collect data, and that data will be used to see what professional development opportunities that we need for our teachers. Our Yonder pouches were adopted at our middle school this year. Though the arrival of those pouches was delayed by back order, the middle school team creatively remained consistent with their goal of removing distractions from the classroom. This process allowed our students to understand the expectations for the building, and it was a smooth transition when the pouches did arrive. And we have had a great response from our teachers about the pouches. Their words, not mine, a game changer, meaning that it gave an opportunity for kids to really focus in the classroom and not be as distracted. Now, children, middle school kids, they're going to have some distractions, but those phones were an additional distraction for them. And we'd like to continue those efforts at our high school eventually. We've seen that starting off in this way actually helps to, and high expectations, I don't want to take away from the work of our middle school administrators. I love to invite you all to just walk through the hallways of this middle school and see the work that those middle school administrators and those teachers have come together to really develop a plan for the building. So kudos to the middle school. Traffic patterns at our elementary schools, this is always a work in progress, and we've got to the point where it's running a lot smoother. Obviously, pickup is extremely important at our elementary schools because they are not driving or walking. So we have to, every single school year, we have to make adjustments. They've done very well, very visible at our K1 building, but we've done a really good job with making adjustments. Always the first couple of days are always our toughest days, our elementary buildings with traffic, and we've made those adjustments. And also even with busing, with our middle school, buses start at the middle school, so we have to make sure that we're right on time at the middle school with dismissal, because that will affect our other buildings. We saw that at the beginning, we made the adjustments, but we also have to just monitor to make sure that we're maximizing instructional time in the building. We don't want to cut it too close where we are. We were actually just having that conversation. We don't want to cut it too close where we're now hitting instructional time, because that is our focus. So we're trying to make sure that we're just efficient on our ways of how we're dismissing the buildings, so it doesn't cause slowdowns at our elementary buildings. Registration was a challenge for us this year. We were able to identify some of our processes that immediately created a structure that responded to our parent requests and their concerns. Now, the process that were created during that time will be our ongoing structure for registration, and we found that we needed to make sure our parents had access. So what we did, we actually used this space, and we set up Chromebooks for our parents to access the technology and upload some things that we were allowing them to lead to upload. We just provided that service for them here, so it made it a lot easier for them. And once we started doing those things, it worked out a lot smoother. But we will be making some adjustments with our registration to make sure that it continues to be as smooth as it ended up being. It was not at the beginning, but it did end up being a lot smoother. We wanted to make sure that we're also responding to our parents who are calling. We're asking questions, who want to know how or what paperwork that is necessary. We want to make sure that we're getting back to them as quickly as possible as well. We have a new system, Infinite Campus. Infinite Campus did not come without any hiccups. If you've ever done a implementation on that level, you're always going to find some things that come along with that. But our technology department and our data department have been working diligently to make sure that on the front end with our teachers, they're not seeing those things. They're able to work as smoothly as we possibly can make it, because we made sure that the end user had, they basically received the first priority. So on the back end of things, where we're working to ensure the infrastructure is solid, they were able to do the things, checking attendance, set up the classrooms, all of those things, and everything else that needs to come along with, like report cards and all those things. We prioritized those things first before we got into the things that are coming in the next 8 to 9 weeks. It is a better system, obviously, with something new, and we're used to working on another system. You're going to have a lot of training, and they were able to establish a lot of training routines and establish opportunities for one-on-ones in some cases for some of our teachers or assistants or administrators who need just a little bit of help. But Infinite Campus is working well for us now. It also allows us to do a lot more things in one space. So that is a much better program that we're having. But to sum up everything, this has been a good start for the year. We've had some hiccups, some things that we need to respond to, as even today, responding to something that was placed on social media that was not one of our students, but it did affect our buildings and also affected our neighboring school districts as well, and one of the charter schools in the area. But I'm happy to say that our work with the police department and with the city was right on. They contacted me and Immediately, once they received this, they contacted me to alert us, so we started moving and making sure that they were a lot more visible at the buildings. How we doing? A lot more visible at the buildings. Made sure that our administrators were aware, and then eventually we got to the point where we needed to go ahead and send out information to our parents, even though this was not a situation that the police, even initially, did not feel it was a valid threat. We still took those steps to make sure that we were covering our bases and making sure that our buildings were as safe as we possibly could make them. And that collaboration with the police department turned out very well. And again, it was not one of our students, it was a young person, but not one of our students who placed the post. But again, our response to the possible threat will be the same way as we've always done, just to make sure that we're working closely with the police department and also then alerting everyone who needs to be alerted at the time. So that's where we are. So a good start to the year, even though we had some hiccups and some things, but that goes with school, that goes with education, that goes with serving children, that everything is not gonna work out how we imagine it would work out, but as long as we're responding to the needs of our kids, we'll be fine, and we have been doing that consistently. So that's where we are.
Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. Is there any questions for Dr. Reynolds? Questions, comments?
Madam President, Ms. Daniels? First want to thank everybody just ensuring that our kids were safe today, especially the Garfield Heights Police Department, their relationship with our district as it relates to working collaboratively and proactively to ensure that the kids are safe in our community is truly appreciated. Just some things that we already have in place, like the program where the vehicles are already in front of our school buildings and stuff.
Yes,
our
ma'am.
SPEAR program. Those are things that help me as a parent feel more comfortable with, especially just things we see going on nationwide,
Yes.
as you know, as a concern with kids just being left anywhere. These
Yes.
things happen everywhere. So thanks to that. What I do want to know, just as it relates to safety, and you did not mention a lot about climate and culture. How's things looking with our students these first few weeks at school as it relates to climate, culture, safety of students and staff?
Well, when we're talking about climate and culture, the building goes as the leader goes. And we have some strong leadership in the buildings, and they have set the tone for expectations for the year, even collaborative efforts with our teachers, just to ensure that our teachers have a voice. And Mr. Hurt has also been working with teachers as well, just to ensure that we are hearing everything that needs to be heard, or making sure that they have a voice, because that is the only way that we're gonna get this thing right. But as in culture of the district and culture of the buildings, we are at a great place at this moment. We are doing well. Our kids are doing well. We've had some things, as I said earlier, we're dealing with children. So children are still gonna make some mistakes, or make some decisions that we don't always love for them to make, but our response to those things have been consistent. Even making sure that we're doing some restorative practices to ensure that when the child has made a mistake, that it's not something that's gonna be the end of the world. It's gonna be something that we're gonna make sure that our children are learning from. But our buildings have been consistently working with Satchel Pulse. That is something that is just a staple for our district as well. What we're doing with PBIS, we are at a very good spot right now when we're talking about safety and security, because in our buildings right now, with the Yonder pouches, we've also purchased the X-ray machines, which has allowed us to make sure that we are able to see exactly what's going on in their bags without even having to open their bags. And our folks have been trained very well to make sure that they are able to keep our building as safe as possible. Those things and just our relationships with our children and building those relationships with kids. I've always said, we can have a metal detector, but it can't detect attitudes and situations with children. And what does that is our relationships. So we're always consistently pushing those relationships, and it's being led by the principal of the building, really showing and modeling what relationships are supposed to look like with students and with our teachers as well. So we are at a very good place, and I'm saying that because now that we are getting our culture of our building underway, where safety and security is solid, now our focus has to be our instructional practice and student achievement. So we are at a very good place at this point of the year, so we can then begin to focus strongly on that instructional practice. Long answer, but yes, we're doing very well.
No, thank you. As it relates to like threats like today, I know that parents and students, experienced high levels of anxiety regarding the possible threat, even though it was not credible. It could have been triggering to some of our students. Do our students know and do our parents know of resources that are available to the students that are experiencing high anxiety or stress just because of the threat? I know it wasn't viable, but I do know that it can be very triggering, especially what's recently in the news. And then our kids are going into their Ames and Webb's testing this week, and this unfortunate layer of additional stress and anxiety has been brought upon. So what resources and how can our students reach out to, who do they reach out to if they're feeling overly stressed about
Yes.
this?
Now, their first line of contact is always going to be their teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And their teacher has been trained in social emotional learning, and it's ongoing as well. So just identifying when a child is behaving in a way that's outside of their norm, even though we've only been in school for 3 weeks, we still understand our children so far. But it starts there, it's the initial. And then we have our counselors, and we have our intervention managers are in the buildings. We have so many levels of interventions for our children in the building. And with our smaller children, it is mainly us really paying attention to behaviors. With our older children, they are encouraged and we work with them. We still maintain, the relationships and understanding difference in behavior, but we're also empowering them to speak up if they're going through some things with counselors, with social workers, with communities and schools is another one of our programs that we have in the building. And then on top of that, we're going to be adding more programs in our building that we just approved for Dr. Dupree and his department. But the first line of contact is always going to be the teacher, identifying some things that are happening with children, and then all the supports in our building. With SEL, we have tiers, tier 1, 2, and 3. Tier 1 is what everyone receives. Tier 2 is when we identify that a child needs a little more. We provide those levels of tier 2 level intervention, and tier 3 is where we start looking at outside to make sure we're responding to the needs of our students. That's a part of what we're doing, our NTSS approach to responding to kids. That's what we have to do is now to make sure that we're ensuring that our parents are aware of these things that we're doing to identify when kids are struggling, whether they're struggling academically or they're struggling emotionally.
Yeah, and I'm just talking about like a one-off like today. Like I know that my children have come home just a little bit anxious about going to school tomorrow. I know this is this is what some of their peers are expressing. So just kind of wanted to know, how do we direct our kids? Go let your teacher know.
Yes.
Or whatever, because although it was not credible, it did trigger some fear amongst the student body that maybe, we as parents kind of know because we're kind of dealing with it today.
Yes.
As our kids come home from school, and just want to make sure the kids know and parents also know who they can reach out to make sure that just this one-off, how do we support our kids with ensuring that they know that school is safe and that these things happen today, to make sure that you are safe, and if you still don't feel safe, this is who you can talk to so that we can get you on the road to feeling safe at school again and supported. So that was just the purpose
Yeah.
of that conversation.
What I would encourage parents, if they're seeing some things at home, please call their building immediately. If they're, call the counselor. If they can't think of the counselor, call the principal, call someone at the building. But there will be a response to make sure that we're supporting the children. And child is feeling a certain way. If they happen to be watching this, feel free to go straight to your counselor, to any adult in the building. We have to respond, no matter what the position is in the building, just respond to the need. So I would encourage them to make sure we're contacting the building if there are some stressors that are still occurring.
Just wanted to ask that because I know that's just some feedback I'm hearing from the community where,
Okay.
I don't mind kicking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions for Dr. Reynolds?
Madam President, I just had a follow-up on the safety.
Yes.
Since we have so many new teachers and everything, we're providing training for like lockdown drills, and are we still having lockdown drills in our schools?
Yes. Mr. Sean Chapman is our safety and security supervisor. And yes, we actually started doing our drills today. We had a fire drill. We are working on everything. These are the things that we have to report to the state as well. So it is something that we have to do every month with fire drills. But as in lockdown drills, yes, that is part of the drills that we provide for our buildings as well. I'll be able to get you some dates on when they'll begin to do the lockdown drill. We're actually working with the police department. They're also going to be doing ALICE training for us. Those are also some trainings that will keep our buildings safe as well. We have talked to them since the summer, coordinating dates and trainings with them. Also trainings with our security associates with the police department. So we're doing quite a few things just to ensure that we are taking advantage of those opportunities and those relationships we have with the police department to come on in our building. And with what we've also offered them, and they've taken advantage of this, they also do trainings in our buildings for active shooters, and they take a Saturday morning and they know our buildings because they are doing the trainings within the building. So those relationships will continue to help us keep the building safe. But the ALICE training is something that a lot of schools have chosen to do. It's not a requirement, but we felt that it was something that was necessary in our district because we're trying to take every opportunity to keep those buildings safe.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? I just have a question and a comment. The Yonder pouches, how are our scholars adjusting to having to give up their cell phones?
And this was the feedback that I asked from the principal, Mr. Loretz. Mr. Loretz said that they adjusted easily. Now, you're always going to have one or two who is going to try to smuggle a phone in. We were prepared for that, but as in general, his feedback as the kids did very well with, because he shared with them what the expectations are, and these are the things that we're doing, and it's been the communication prior to them entering the building with parents. So their response was positive. There were no incidents where kids just refuse or anything like that. Our children are children who will respond well to us. We just have to communicate with them, and that's what we've learned in these last few years, that our job is just to communicate with children and have high expectations for children, and children live up to and exceed those expectations every single time. But that is the job to make sure that we have those high expectations. So they did well. They did well.
And my comment is, I think that we in general should ensure that our families and our students, our scholars, know that we do have mental health providers. So it could be something that happens at home that they may feel upset about, or a family may be going through something, that they're made aware that we do have those services and can make connections for them.
Yes.
So no matter what a family might be going through, whether it's related to school or something, personal, that we can make those linkages for them. I think we should make sure that our families know that.
Yes, because we're trying our best to I don't want to call it a one-stop shop, but I wanted to make sure that we are responding to the needs of not only the children, but also to the families. And thank you again for the introduction with Tri-C and the work we're doing. We're trying to make sure we're sent out a survey to our parents. We really need parents to respond to those, but that survey is really to find out how our partnership with Tri-C can help families, whether they're trainings, whether they're just classes. We're trying to bring all of those things here to Garfield Heights City Schools and our buildings here so that it would make it a little bit easier for our parents. In addition, what we've done with Cleveland Clinic as well, with our mobile medical unit, we're trying to think of everything possible to respond to the needs of our families, which will respond to the needs of our children. So you're exactly right. We're always going to be able to respond or have services for our students, including mental health. We have someone from Cleveland Clinic who will be in the district, who was currently in the district, throughout the district every single day. So those services are there. You're exactly right. I'm glad that you brought that up. Those services are there every single day. We just need for our families to know that they're out there and to take advantage of every one of these opportunities that we have for them.
Yes.
For them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the legislative liaison report. And so everyone has in front of them a huge packet, and we're not gonna go through all of these, but I thought it was very important for us to know what was passed before they went on summer recess. They won't be back, the legislature will not be back until after the election. So, but these are things that passed prior to them going on recess. So if we could go to House Bill 47 in your packet, which would be on page 2. I'm working off of 2 different packets here. It requires the placement of AEDs in each school, and we have to provide training to teachers, principals, administrators, coaches, athletic directors, et cetera, so that they know how to utilize the AEDs, and we have to make sure that we adopt a plan for the use of AEDs and policies. So I wanted to make sure we knew that. If we go to House Bill 147, this talks about any pupil services personnel, private providers, registered for the Autism Scholarship Program, and unlicensed teachers will be subject to laws regarding school employee misconduct. And it also talks about any licensed employee who retires during a misconduct investigation still has to be reported to the State Board of Education and Workforce. When a licensed employee is removed from the list of eligible substitute teachers because it's determined they committed an offense unbecoming of the teaching profession, we also have to file a report with that as well. Also under House Bill 147, it allows a student to participate in athletics at a different school if they are subjected by a school official, employee, volunteer, or student if there's any type of harassment or bullying, an offense of violence, violation of the state importuning law, an attempt to commit an offense of violence or to violate the importuning law, or conduct unbecoming the teaching profession. So our students, if that occurs, will be allowed to go to a different school to participate in athletics. The district where the student participates is prohibited from imposing any extra fees, rules, penalties, or restrictions on students beyond what applies to students participating in the activity. So for instance, if someone came to us from another district, we couldn't charge them an extra fee for them to participate in our district.
Do the other district pay for them to participate? Did they say that at all?
No, they would, no, because right now we're not pay to play, so that would be a no. Also, under House Bill 147, school events prohibits schools from having different ticket prices based on whether the ticket is purchased with cash or another method of payment. So we couldn't do an upcharge for them using their debit card. You know, some places, I'm not saying school districts, will do a 1.5% charge if you use your debit card. We can't do anything like that. And then also we have to make sure that students are charged less than adults. Also under House Bill 147, and I'm just kind of highlighting what I saw as important. I would encourage all of you to go through and read in much greater detail. It requires public schools to pay a pre-K teacher a $1,200 stipend for completing professional development in the science of reading. Requires providers and staff of private before and after school child care programs operating in a public school to receive a background check. All right, we're moving on to House Bill 214. Requires public schools to adopt a policy that reasonably accommodates the sincerely held religious beliefs and practices of students, including up to 3 excused absences for religious expression days. Let's move to Senate Bill 29, which is on page 7. Requires each contract between a technology provider and the school district to ensure appropriate security safeguards for educational records. Requiring each district to provide parents and students with notice of any curriculum, testing, or assessment technology provider contract affecting a student's educational records. Allowing a district or technology provider to electronically access or monitor a student's activity on a school-issued device only in specific limited circumstances, and requires the district to notify parents of any permitted access. Going on to Senate Bill 112, which would be on page 9, I believe. Actually, yeah, 9, maybe 10, or 9. Ohio's Childhood Safety Act requires annual inspections of doors in public schools by qualified inspectors, and we must maintain a record of those door inspections. Moving to Senate Bill 168 on page 13. This allows districts to develop and use their own framework for teacher evaluations instead of using the framework developed by the State Board of Education. I thought that was very interesting. Exempts consistently high-performing counselors from additional coursework or professional development requirements for licensure renewal. Continuing on with 168, allows Ohio Department of Education and Workforce to establish alternative pathways for bachelor's degree holders to obtain a license to work as a principal or superintendent, and requires the state board to issue a license to an individual who completes one of those pathways. Requires ODEW to develop and recommend proposal for an apprenticeship for principals. Also changes the grade bands for education educator licensure from grades 6 through 12 to grades 7 through 12. It also clarifies that a district is not required to hold a separate individual public hearing on a proposed school calendar, but the calendar may be addressed as a part of another public hearing or meeting, so we can do that as part of our regular school board meeting. Requires that the record of proceedings of a Board of Education meeting be read at the board's next regular meeting instead of the next succeeding meeting. Also, under SB 168, changes referenced in the sexually transmitted infection education from venereal disease to sexually transmitted infection. It changes the requirement regarding conception and marriage in the sexually transmitted infection education in schools to teach that conceiving children at an early age or outside of marriage increases the likelihood of hardship in life. We shouldn't have too much more. Continuing on with 168, it requires the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce to establish and administer the 5-year school turnaround pilot program to address chronic low performance in districts and community schools, and establishes a school building selection process. Requires that the establishment of the pilot program for the 2024-2025 school year is based on state assessments to test the possibility of remotely administered and proctored state assessments. So they're looking at a pilot program so that our state assessments could be done remotely. And that's it. The rest of the packet talks about things that happen that may occur in the lame duck sessions, but we don't have to go over that now. We can take our time and read through those and discuss those as they come about. Are there any questions, comments, concerns, aha moments?
Madam President,
Ms. Daniels?
I think the one thing that maybe concern me, and I would have to look more into this to make sure that I'm interpreting this properly, but in House Bill 147, with the interscholastic participation and allowing a student that to participate in a different district if they were had an issue with another volunteer or student. I see that maybe being used as a unfair loophole, because we know how people try to get into other district sports and stuff, and making sure that we have some very clear. I just would hate for our coaches to be unfairly targeted with allegations just so students could move. You know, I hope they take a good look at this and put some very strict guidelines in place or consequences for false allegations to deter that kind of thing.
And I think we can work as a district to make sure that we have policies for how we investigate and look at all of these different offenses and what our steps would be. So we would have to look at that in our policy committee to make sure that we're addressing all the things that are in here if we haven't already. I think this one's pretty new, so I know we haven't addressed this one. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns, aha moments? All right, moving on, could I get a motion to move and waive 4.1 and 4.2?
So moved.
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Cox and second by Ms. Morrison. Are there any questions?
Madam President,
Ms. Daniels?
if we could just get some clarification on the need for an additional transportation company for the district.
For Dr. Reynolds?
Do you want me to? Yeah. All right. So we looked at SR Trans because we have a large proportion of our student body, especially in special education, need curb-to-curb transportation that's on their IEPs, and some of it is out-of-district transportation. So the district was running into an issue where we didn't have enough time to get, or capacity to have our in-district van drivers get students from school to their homes or school to the out-of-district placement without affecting instructional time in our buildings. So this would alleviate some of the issues with our drivers having to go out of district to some placement facilities out in Ravenna, Fairview, Cleveland, or things that are mandated by IEPs that sometimes come into our district from when students enroll in the districts and carry over. So this would help alleviate that, so our van drivers can focus on getting our students who are in district from the building to their curb or to their home, and then we can focus on that and not really jeopardize instructional time, which is quite important and legal. It's a legal issue too. So anything you want to add to that, Dr.?
No, you hit it right on, because our focus again is on maximizing instructional time. We came into the year making sure that we were not losing any instructional time because of transportation. And one of the things that we saw that we needed to do were to use some outside resources in order to transport some of our students.
Are we still using Almighty Transportation too?
Yeah, so that's in addition to Almighty Transportation. The issue is that everyone's fighting for transportation drivers, even the third-party companies. This company is by and far the most efficient that we've seen when it comes to like background checks and the van conditions. I mean, most of the drivers that I saw in the quote packet had like the passenger endorsement that we see it with our bus drivers that must have it. So I think this is in addition to Almighty Transportation. I think those are the two we're using currently in accordance with our fleet. And we've added vans this year. We added 3 more vans and drivers just to look at meeting capacity in our district. And I think this is an issue that is not going to go away anytime soon, unfortunately, but this will help at least alleviate so we can continue to efficiently, work as a district with our students.
So will these two companies right now meet our need as a district, or would this get us what we need to?
So I think this would alleviate a lot of what we're seeing issues with out-of-district transportation. What usually happens is at the beginning of the year, we see our IEPs or students in need of transportation on IEPs at the lowest, and then throughout the year, we see it jump. So we always evaluate. I know looking at data from last year, we added van drivers, subsequently added vans throughout the year to meet that capacity. We did that preemptively this year because we knew that capacity was going to fill up quite fast. I think this helps alleviate, is not the silver bullet answer though. Again, this is just solely, we're using it for out-of-district students. So anyone who's out of district goes from their home to an out-of-district placement. We're not using them for anyone in district, any of our students in district. So I think it's an important designation as well, because it may come to a point where we have to use some of these to offset the lack of capacity we have in district with our transportation flows, which we really hope we don't get to. But Carrie and the transportation team does a great job at managing this, and this is a direct solution to cutting into instructional time. I think that's important. We wouldn't do this unless instructional time was being threatened or jeopardized.
And the problem is that our community can be somewhat transient. So we could have a student to come in, or 5 students to come in next week, and some of them may need transportation. So this allows us to respond to where we are now, and that's why he said he doesn't see that this is going to be changing. because it could provide other issues for transportation for us in the future. So we're always having conversations and making sure that we are efficient with our decisions on how we're doing this thing, but it is an ongoing problem, not only just for us, this is for a lot of school districts as well.
And then you have students to just, they have a change of placement this,
Mhm.
you know, not even just move into the district,
Yeah.
but just to have a change of placement during, because all these students we are transporting, although they're out of district, these are our students that we're having to transport
Yeah.
for additional services due to special needs.
Yeah, and there's a few students that courts mandate us to transport. I think we have about 5 or 6 of them, and they're door to facility transportation. Court mandates it. We get into like McKinney-Vento when families claim homelessness. We are at the mercy of the state, and the state doesn't have clear guidelines on that. So sometimes we're locked in for a year. Even if we can prove residency in a different district, which we have, we're still bound by those structures that Columbus has put in place where it kind of ties our hands and we have to do it. So again, I think as you look at the enrollment numbers of our district specifically, you'll see that the proportion of special ed students to general ed students is climbing over time in our district, and it's happening all over the state because we just provide better services than non-public schools do. Like, that is just a fact, and that's just how it is. So we're always looking. Transportation is always the goalposts are always moving throughout the year, but we're lucky that we have a really, really good transportation team that manages it. Dr. Reynolds and I usually only have to get involved at the very top when we're bringing it to you because they take care of it for us and they manage the schedules and they let us know where there's issues, and this is one of them today.
Thank you for being proactive and making sure that we have what we need to support our scholars and getting from home to school or facility and back home.
Of course.
All right, we need to do roll call.
Yes. Right. Ms. Cox?
Yeah.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes. All right, moving on to the tentative agenda review. We have our agenda in front of you for our September 16th meeting, which will be held, I believe, at the high school.
Yes.
Any questions, comments, concerns on our agenda for next Monday?
Madam President,
Ms. Daniels?
I was wondering, because I'm not aware of the details regarding 11.2, is it possible for us to have an executive session? Or
we
is
could-
this something we already, I'm not aware of?
Yeah, we would need to have an executive session before.
Before or after, it's up to you.
I would like it before.
We need to
Before.
do it before so we can vote on it. So we would do that right after we open up
Right,
the meeting.
yeah, open it, we'll go on executive session.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? And is there a possibility that there'll be additional staff that will need to go on?
The only staff I could see would be like supplemental contracts, if there's any
Okay.
changes with those. So 16.1 have the academic supplementals for the year. I could see maybe 1 or 2 of them changing if needed, but I think looking at this, I think we're all set. Especially with classified staff. That's the most transient group for us, which is like our OC union folks, bus drivers, aides, housekeepers. But it looks like we have the majority of any changes there for this board meeting. So yes, I don't foresee any major changes. If there are any changes, we'll let you know
Okay.
if we want to vote on it or just push it to October.
Madam President,
Yes.
there is an item that I'd like for us to include on our next meeting. It is a short presentation from the ESC regarding the strategic plan.
Okay.
They'd like to just talk about some dates, upcoming dates, and some committees they'd like to begin to put together. I had a conversation with them last week and want to make sure that they have an opportunity to really just kind of give us the timeline of the dates that are coming up. Yeah.
Okay. Can we add that, Bill?
Yeah, so we'll have the special ed presentation and then the ESC. Would you like to do the ESC first? Or
Let's do
do it
ESC
first.
first, so that then they have the opportunity to leave.
Perfect.
You're welcome.
Madam President,
Ms. Daniels?
if Dr. Reynolds can explain 19.2, the approval of kindergarten date to September 30th.
So is that the cutoff date?
Yes,
Changing the cutoff date?
yes. The original cutoff date was August 1st. We felt that it would give more of our children an opportunity to get started in school by moving the date to September 30th. We feel that this will allow us to not miss out on some of the children who may be going elsewhere because of the dates may change or the date may work better for families. So it does allow us to really begin to establish our expectations and learning for some of our younger children.
So this is stating that students that turn 5 up to and including September 30th will be able to go to school without doing the early entrance.
Yes, yes.
And that will be effective 25-26 school year or this school year?
Effective right now, going forward for the school year, we would like it effective 24-25 if we can.
So any
So
student,
how do we didn't communicate that to parents who may have registered their kindergartners and school has started?
so this would go into effect beginning today and moving to the end of the
Yes.
month.
Yeah, we're trying to get this started now. So we also put some things in place to support those students who may need a little bit more. We have a teacher who will be on hand who can make sure that we are starting from very much foundational pieces, just in case we come across students who we screen them to see where they are, and those students who need a little bit more will be placed with that teacher and I believe an assistant in the room as well.
Correct. And knowing that our kindergarten numbers are low, consistently low, we want to give an opportunity to be consistent with the districts around us because they're September 30th. So we're hoping our students do attend here in Garfield Heights with that September 30th date change.
So
Going forward.
So how would we communicate this to our families? So if there is a child that turns or has turned 5 after August 1st and they thought they didn't have the opportunity for their child to attend, how are we going to, in such a quick time frame, we've got about 2 weeks.
We can
how are
still
going
enroll them in the process.
But how are we going to let families know?
We same, and luckily we have Mr. Whalen here, but we use every bit of our resources, including what we have at Infinite Campus, our mailers as well, social media. We use the full gamut just to make sure we get that information out there to those families who could benefit from their children being in school right now.
Madam President,
Ms. Daniels?
I want all of our, this has been a thing that I've been pushing for a while, so I'm glad we're finally here. Just my only concern is us voting on this into the school year. I wish we could have made this decision prior to the school year because as we know, how many days are we into the school year already? These kids will be missing instruction, so I don't like our kindergarten classes being disrupted, like with a lot of new, like are we gonna have a cutoff time? It's just like, we're already into the school year. Hopefully, we want all our kids to come. Hopefully, we don't have a huge influx immediately, so we don't disrupt our classrooms and instruction too much. But I wish we would have been able to get this out sooner, so that we could have given some of our parents, you know, a better opportunity to make that decision, because that's a huge decision, you know, as it relates, or even preparing your student for kindergarten, you know. And so I just wish we could have probably voted on this or made this decision prior to the school year starting, to just give parents a fair opportunity to just choose Garfield for kindergarten. But I do believe that we do need as many of our kindergartners in the district, just like our neighboring districts, at those ages, so that we don't get them in first grade. Because that was always my concern, but I just wish we could have got this out sooner. That's it.
Anything else?
Madam President,
Ms. Thomas?
just curious, wasn't it always September 30th?
August 1st.
Okay.
It was August 1st. And it was different. Neighboring school districts are September 30th. We just held on to August 1st for whatever reason.
You mean the district?
Our district,
Okay.
yeah. We held on to August 1st for some time. And
I
you're
have
encouraged to
three.
look into that.
I have 3 late birthday children, so I have 3 that had to wait a whole year.
Yeah.
But I've always known that date was late September,
Yeah.
so this is the first I've heard that it was August. So I'm excited,
Yeah.
since I'm a mom of late birthdays,
Yeah.
that my parents are getting the opportunity to choose Garfield.
Are there any other questions, comments, concerns in regards to our agenda for Monday's meeting? And maybe on Monday, we can get an update on what we've done to get the word out to
Yes,
families about the change of date.
sure can.
Do we have to change policy at all? Is this the start in policy or anywhere? Just maybe need to take a look at policy.
Yeah, Neola, there's a Neola policy for this, the policy committee is gonna have to go through and do it. I think, Ms.
Yeah.
Bader, you sent me the Neola policy for it. It has to change, because our current policy it won't be, we have to get compliant with it when we change.
But it starts here and then goes to the policy.
Good, it's a good, we'll have to look into it, I
Okay.
think.
Can we
I
maybe
mean,
actually
usually it
go
goes policy,
Then to
board.
board. Okay.
Is that
Can
how
we-
the structure we've used before?
Can we check with Eric just to make
Yeah.
sure we're compliant, because we may have to not do it this year if it's gotta go through policy and then come to the board.
Madam President,
Ms. Cox?
just curious, does it take a year to go through policy?
No, but it's just going to be September 30th before we know it, before it can go through policy.
Madam President, Ms. Daniels, just for clarification purposes, the registration don't have to happen by September 30th. The student just needs to be turning 5 by September 30th, correct?
Yes.
So I don't think September 30th is not, just in fairness, September 30th is not like our deadline for registration. Your kids just, even if they were transferring in from, if a kid transferred from another district and didn't meet our age guidelines, do we register them in kindergarten here, or we say they're not eligible?
We've done that in the past. I'm not sure.
We try to work with whatever that
Okay.
age group is, and if we can place them in our preschool program, we do that, work along with the parents. But right now, we're just having conversations when folks do come in if there's age requirements, so we let them know that we're leaning towards moving to that September 30th date.
Okay.
I'm just looking at, as you had mentioned before, Ms. Daniels, that if we're taking children later and later in the year, not outside of moving, you know, from district to district, but just taking brand new kindergartners later in the year,
The instructional time.
the instructional time has been missed, so,
Missed a lot.
let's find out from legal which way we have to go, and that might change when we can get this up and going and having us vote on it, because we might not be able to vote on it on Monday
Yeah, I would,
if it
I mean,
goes.
if it has to go through policy committee, you need a policy committee meeting, and then have to be voted out of the committee, brought to the board,
Right.
2 readings.
Right,
So it certainly won't be done unless we call a special board meeting prior to that.
right,
You need the 2 readings to make it, to have it board approved policy. So you're looking at a policy committee meeting, first reading, second reading, and then you can put it into our books.
we can move and waive the readings.
We
can't
can, yes, so that's, but I have to get the policy update from Neola for it.
Okay.
So that's, half the battle is getting the legal analysis from what we do, and then it's, if we have it, getting the updated policy from Neola,
Okay,
and then we can go from there.
okay.
So, would you like me to change anything on the agenda now, or get
Yes.
some answers first?
Yes.
Madam President,
Yes,
I just
ma'am.
have one other question. Just so we'll know how to move as a board, because is there a particular reason of urgency right now that, you know, where we may need to expedite some matters such as a special board meeting, waiving the reading of the new policies, you know, like, that way we just kind of know as a board, you know, is this something we're just, you know, we're ready as a district to move forward on? Or is there, and we can just kind of be flexible with next school year, or is there a particular urgency that we need to be aware of so that we know how to move to meet the urgent needs of the district as it relates to this matter? Because I just want to be, you know, make sure I know.
For me, and Ms. Betty may be able to run with this a little more. It is just making sure that we just provide these opportunities for families as quickly as we possibly can. Once we establish that we have those supports that are in place, that was one of the things that we wanted to do, because, you know, once we change a couple of things, there's concerns that come up that kids may not be prepared in order to come in, so we needed to make sure that some supports were in place. Once we started establishing what the supports would be, that's where we were like, okay, now we're ready to go ahead and take this to the board, to go ahead and get this thing approved. So that's why we're here right now. The supports are in place now, in case we are able to do those things, and that's why that's the only piece of that. We need to get the supports in place before we just committed to, because we could have said it's going to be this and not really be ready if we had kids who came in the door that just were not ready for school. But we created those supports with a great teacher we have in the building, and now we're prepared to move forward. So that's where we are right now.
With the students families that have come in to enroll, have we seen have we missed out? Are we aware of any students we've missed out on in terms of families having those late birthdays?
Not to my knowledge. Registration keeps coming every day, so
Right.
we can check that and get that information back to the board so you have all of that documentation, but we'd have to check with registration at this point in time. But I don't feel like we're turning many folks away, and we're certainly making sure they have the information. A lot of folks already think it's September 30th because, the neighboring communities have that date as well too. And the state says either one or the other. And so again, we're trying to be consistent with what others are already at, so that we're getting our kids in early and prepared for first grade. I mean, kindergarten is really critical, and if we have the opportunity to give them extra supports and get them onto first grade successfully, that's really what we want to try to do for our students in the district.
I know parents, just from feedback I've heard over the years since we changed it to October 1st, parents in the community are going to be very happy about this shift. So this is a response to parents and community. So I most definitely can say that. And I'm excited about it because I do think it's going to be a great way to prepare our students, our future students beyond kindergarten to be as successful as possible, because they do come back, so that's the thing. So I'm excited that we finally put some things in place for this. I just, wanna make sure that we're giving all families equitable opportunities to access it, and then ensuring that we do not cause too many disruptions with our current students in the classrooms as we move forward with this. But I think it's great.
Another goal of this is also to give parent support, so we're working with Ms. Cox and Tri-C right now to bring parent support to the district. And just for our young learners and our parents, it's really critical that we get them in there and start to build that stamina with our families as well, to make sure that our students are having academic supports at home, parents know what to do with their kiddos, and just making that a big wraparound service for the success of our students.
Thank you.
I have a question. Could we get a little bit of information on the, on 18.1, the wraparound services?
Yeah, that's non-public.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the non-public piece right there. We handle the accounting piece.
Yeah, so we handle all the funding for the non-public schools when it comes to their federal money.
Yes.
And you guys have to approve all the services that they want to use throughout the year. So effectively, we hold the keys to what those entities get to spend their title money.
Right.
So this is
It's not ours.
It's
Okay.
St. Columkill, and then you'll see another one down there as well. Is
Cleveland Central.
Yeah, Cleveland Central Catholic.
Okay.
If it's still, yes, so
Oh,
Cleveland
okay,
Central
I see.
Catholics, yeah. It's the same thing, so we're just approving, you guys are approving their ability to use their funds. 'Cause
Right.
we have to manage it, because there's students in our district that attend those schools, and their money follows like their PPA, so for
Okay.
people.
Just wanted to make sure I was understanding. All right. Anything else? All right. 5.2, does anyone have any training updates? The only thing I want to mention is that we do have, I'm forgetting already. We've got, Capital Conference that's coming up. We also have, MSBA, is it MSBA? OSQ, Q coming up. And then we also have, COASBA, which just came out this week. So that is March 21st through the 23rd in Atlanta. The pre-conference is actually on the 20th. So if you are interested, I sent an email out. If you're interested in going, you make your own, do your own registration, hotel, and airline, and then just make sure that Therese and Phil get your receipts. That way everybody can book based on their schedule. Also, the fall conference for the Northeast Ohio OSBA is on October 2nd at the Galaxy Restaurant in Wadsworth. So those are updates on upcoming events.
Madam President,
Ms. Cox?
do we get tickets for the October 2nd?
Yes. So you can go on OSBA and you can purchase your ticket and then send Phil and Therese your receipt. I think it's $45.
Madam President,
Anything?
you all should try to go because Madam President is going to be acknowledged and be getting the Star Award.
Aptitude.
Yes. Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Atlanta or?
No.
No, at
The October
the
2nd.
October 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
In Wadsworth?
That's good.
Wadsworth, yes. They consider it central to Northeast Ohio. Any other updates? All right, again, our regular board meeting will be Monday, September 16th at 6 o'clock at the high school. I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:11.
So moved.
Second. That was moved by Ms. Cox and second by Ms. Daniels. Can I get roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Cox?
Yeah.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes. Meeting adjourned.
Dr. Lynch.